We are live. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador Terry 𝗖𝗄𝗄 coming to you live. And welcome to the People Come First series. So I'm talking about new business models and going in the future, going forward. I'd like to introduce my business partner, 𝗖𝗄𝗄𝗄, and two of our colleagues and very good friends, John Chappelear and Jenny Landgren. Started off, who am I? Well, I'm Ambassador Terry 𝗖𝗄𝗄. If you have about 5 hours, I'll explain that, but we're going to make it a little simpler. Go to my profile page here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and you'll find a lot out about me and my past. And I'm going to pass it off to Linda now, and you can put in some.
Hello, I'm Linda Nichols, married to HE Ambassador Terry 𝗖𝗄𝗄, and we have John Chappelear with us and Jenny Landgren. We're so glad to have both of you join us as we step into talking about people coming first. And my background has been housewife of CEO in a former marriage, and I kind of took the brunt of that. So coming home very late, kids not going to bed, kids with very challenging behavior. So I've seen it from that side, and now I am the CEO of our business, Evolutionary Healer. So Terry and I. So John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, that's great. I brought my short version of my introduction here, so just give me a second. I'll just put this on the teleprompter. My name is John Chappelear. I own a company called Changing the Focus, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Is exactly what I've been attempting to do for, well, even since before I started changing the focus. Is that businesses are built on the success of the people. And planning is something that is really much more helpful if you work on making sure that people are ready for the planning than the planning is ready for the people, because otherwise all you end up with is a lot of resentment. So, and for me, it's not just educational, but I ran companies for 30 years before I started doing this, which makes me a combination of a lot of experience and very old. So it's a sort of a nice win-win for the elderly. I love the fact that this is a discussion that we're finally getting to raise some awareness in, because I can't tell you how many times I sort of beat against the wall to try and get people to realize that if you let me help you focus on your people, all the other issues you're talking about will simply solve themselves. And that sometimes just sounds too simple. It must be much more complicated than that. And the answer is, well, it's certainly the only way you're going to get where you want to go is through the people. So let's work on getting them where you want them to be. And surprisingly enough, you may end up exactly where you need to be. So that's my intro. And I'm going to hand it off to Jenny.
Thank you so much, John. And it's wonderful to be here with you all. So I am dialing in from Sweden as the CEO and founder of 𝗖𝗄𝗄 Communication. When I was 25 years old, I was teaching leadership and communication at university to engineers, and also found myself in a marriage where I got to discover the deeper meaning of communication and manipulation personally and by experience. So my story is that I have exited a marriage of 10 years of psychological abuse. And now I get to connect the deeper educational understanding for communication, management, and business development with my own personal journey. So today I get to support my clients in expanding their lives and reclaiming their power in a very special way, very much based on my own experience. So I coach CEOs, managers, and employees. I map out work environments, and I get to support through conflict resolving, and still teach and train, and love what I do. And yes, so much looking forward to these conversations for sure.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you.
Great introductions, everybody. Great, great, great. So this first of a series that we're putting on, People Come First, getting along with your team is our theme for today. And what does that bring up for you in your past? What are your beliefs and your teachings now? And where do you think we're going in the future with get along with your team? You know, we see so much of the Great Resignation that those words are getting kind of old. So we get to make up a new one for that. But there's a lot of people that are not happy with their work. They're not being recognized. They're not being supported as being humans. They're just people. They're just output. And people are not putting up with that anymore. And how do we get to change that? Well, you know, there's a lot of people out there doing it right. And I quote Sir Richard Branson a lot. Take care of your people and they'll take care of your clients. And he didn't have these problems. You know, he keeps a full workforce. And the reason why is this leader is right out there in the middle of them. He's out there taking care of them. He's listening to them. He's speaking to his people all the time, not at them. And I just recently was on a program where I mentioned, you know, when you talk from here, from your heart and your soul to somebody, and you're reaching to them as a human being, as a colleague, you're touching them. You're acknowledging their human existence. And when you talk at them, you're just throwing information out, do this, do that. I want this done now, go. That's talking at people. They're not going to last anymore. They're not going to put up with that anymore. And I can't wait to hear my three colleagues' take on that. Linda.
You lost me, buddy.
Well, getting along with your team. What's your take on that?
The only time I ever worked on a team was when I was a special education teacher in a psychiatric day treatment center. And being vulnerable was the best way of getting along with the team. One time I had a new behavior manager enter my classroom and leave, enter my classroom and leave over and over. And I got so sick to my stomach and I didn't even know why. I had lost my dad to suicide between junior and senior year of high school. So, you know, by that point, I understood that I dealt with abandonment issues. And so every time she left, she was abandoning me. So I was able to share that story with her and ask her to please not do that so much. And, you know, she just innocently was, had a little extra time and was going to be helping me out educationally. So anyways, we resolved that. And that was really big time for me. So when people don't really know your background and when you're not even aware of your own triggers, that causes a lot of issues on a team. And I know Jenny can totally run with that one.
Thank you for sharing, Linda. What I hear is that, you know, you got to a point where you got to be just human, right? And if we want to bring humanity back into leadership and back into the workplace, then that's how we get to show up. What I found from my own personal journey is that the moment that I start putting on a facade or start talking about matters or myself as the ideal and not as it truly is, I lose myself and I lose the connection that I had with the people around me. So what helps me to be able to look at myself and truly see what is there? For me, it has been a journey of growing a compassionate and loving relationship towards myself as a leader, to be comfortable in my own company, so that I really want to stay there and figure out what's going on and what's my next step and what do I yet have to develop or get to develop. And what I'm seeing in the companies that I'm supporting right now is that people are coming back from, having spent all this time at home throughout the pandemic, and they're all very comfortable in that arrangement. So now everything is new, and we're sort of discovering what is this post-pandemic business going to look like. And there's just a lot of conflicts appearing around fairness. And also people and also leaders are coming back with emotional and psychological needs that are yet unmet because it has not been a priority in communication. So that experience of just not being seen and my needs not being met is just growing even bigger. And as a leader in this situation of seeing this frustration growing, it takes a lot of self-care and a lot of inner work to not take that personally and understand that there's, it's an outpour of where these people are at the moment. How can I show up human so that we can all connect in this situation and figure this out together through curiosity, through care? What's coming in for you, John?
Well, what everyone has said has been really helpful. The issue for me comes back to, again, I started my first business at 28, and that grew to have 400 employees by the time I was 38. So it wasn't a whole lot of time to learn how to run a company while you're just trying to hold on to the rail and not have it, jump off over the fence and just run away from you. So that's the biggest issue for me is, and again, this is just a byproduct of having been in business for so long, is that I haven't really, I hear the same things again and again and again. And this is Jenny, you were listening to a conversation I had with a young man in Romania about the idea. They were talking about technology and automation. And I was saying, yes, but don't forget about the people associated with the automation. And I can, anytime there's a difficult time, a downturn in the economy, a giant glitch like COVID, all of a sudden people become very important. And that's because we finally come to the realization that they are. The issue will be, okay, what will happen in a year? Terry was talking about what happens in a year when things get better and people kind of go back to work, and then all of a sudden they start getting taken for granted again and begin to see opportunities. You have to allow the time for growth within the framework of an organization. It's not an extracurricular activity that somebody needs to go home and learn how to meditate. If meditation is part of what your process is within the organization, then build some time into that, into the company. If growing the people according to goals and focusing them according to goals and measuring their success according to goals, then give them some opportunity to understand what that actually means. Learning to use words like, we need a 35% improvement here versus we've got to really work a lot harder. We need to clarify what we say. We need to clarify the time frame in which we create expectations. It almost always comes back, and it's the thing that's really helpful about with Jenny and Linda both is that they have this sort of childhood teaching experiences, and I don't know necessarily. I've been having people tell me for 20 years, well, you want the managers that treat these like people like children. And I'm thinking, well, you haven't trained them in any other way yet. So, everybody gets trained how to do the job, but nobody gets trained right after the first promotion. It's like, okay, you got trained to do the job. Now you're promoted to supervisor. Good luck. And, and the further you go up, the less training you get. I mean, I've been doing training for a long time. I haven't ever given a CEO training course for CEOs. By the time you get to that spot, you're supposed to already kind of know what you're doing. But if we expect people to be higher performers, then they have to be ready for the job when they get there, not after they get there. And this kind of reminds me, and the reason I mention this is because the thing that you hear on a plane all the time is, make sure you put your mask on before you put the mask on of the children or other people who are traveling with you. And so if the leader has to have the mask on first. He has to have the peace of mind, the consistency, the honesty, the integrity, so that they can then enjoin their people and their staff to be the same. And I don't want to ramble on, but I heard something the other day about confidence. And while I love the fact that people are picking great words, confidence is not one of them. I've known a number of people who are highly confident and completely dishonest. They have nothing, there's a conditional word that associates with confidence. It's like confidently honest, confidently highly integrity doesn't have anything to do with confidence. I know a lot of people are really, really have high levels of integrity and are absolutely introverted to the point where they can barely talk, but just confidence, sometimes that reminds me of a car salesman selling me some undercoating. So I worry about the things that we are teaching people in ways in which we want them to become the leaders that people want to follow. Because that's the only way you're going to get an organization move forward, is to have people willing to follow the people that you've put in charge of leading. So that's me.
Good one. I just wanted to pop this up. Jenny, it seems like we have a fan out there. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for the kind words. Appreciate that. You've all said, hit some key points, the reason why the billions and billions, it's several $100 billion a year goes into training people all over the world. Then they come back to their office and the boss says, oh, did you learn something? Good. You have 10 things to have back to me by lunch. Go get it. Nothing changed. They go back to their desk as if they never left. Only this time they're a week behind or whatever it is. And whatever they learned, whatever they wanted to bring to the company just got thrown in the can.
Right.
So, we're really hitting on leadership, but really this is what this is all about. We as leaders, ladies and gentlemen, that's you too out there. We as leaders, even if it's just a 2-person group or a 200,000 person group, you get to talk to 2 people and understand that you used to be in that chair. What was it like when everybody was hammering on you? Not a lot of fun, but you knew that you were going to go higher. Well, these folks are not that dedicated to your company anymore. And they don't see a need to be dedicated and loyal to a company that's constantly beating them up and asking them to work extra hours without pay and all this other stuff. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, people. Change is here. The collaboration of people working together gets them excited and keeps them coming to work every day. They're not going to burn out like overachievers do. Overachievers are worked like a slave until they burn out and they lose them. The company just replaces them. We're talking about group achievement here and getting to really connect with our team. Linda, further thoughts on that?
I'm wondering if you would, Terry, share your story about leading teams, because you've had a lot of experience, and I especially enjoy the stories where you were talking to like the dining room staff and telling them like what it means if people are talking versus people not talking. Those would be great teachings to hear again.
Well, thanks for that. That's a long time ago, but still relevant. My book, Profiling for Profit, What Crossed Arms Don't Tell You, teach how people how to read body language. Subconscious muscle movement is more critical to read than people who are practiced with crossing their arms. They're taught that way. But what Linda was referring to is I was a club manager in a number of private clubs and in my corporate life as well. And what I taught my people was when everybody's sitting at the table and they're laughing and smiling and having a good time, that's good. Just kind of watch for them. Make sure that the order of service is getting going. But as soon as people stop talking at a table, get to that table and find out why they're no longer happy sitting there. Is their food late? What is that? What can you cut off before they cut you off? Okay. So that you are taking care of them before they want you to take care of them. And that respect and that connection with the customer, client, member of the club, whatever the case may be, is critical. And you're always, as a boss, like the restaurant manager for that day should be, when they're not watching the tables in the flow, they're watching the point of sale and see how everybody is getting their orders on time. Is the wait staff updating the fire to cook the entree on time so it comes out in a reasonable way? Keeping track of large groups that come in and are very slow to order, and if they don't order, then you want them to move forward and order before they get caught up and they don't get their meal for a half an hour, 45 minutes, because the rest of the traffic of the restaurant interfered with getting their order done. You let them know all of that ahead of time. And when it takes 35, 40 minutes for it to get it, they understand it was their fault. Okay. But you still do little things for them because you're acknowledging their human existence, not the dollar they're spending. Thanks for that, Linda.
What's coming up for me as you're sharing, Terry, is that you're encouraging leaders to pay attention. You're encouraging leaders to genuinely care. And through coaching and through my own experience, I found that, the reason why we start caring, truly caring about our people, is because we gain this concrete experience of how deeply connected we are, how my growth can never happen separate to other people. When I meet what is different, when I meet what is new, that's my opportunity to self-reflect, to meet myself. If I was by myself on a desert island, I would never know myself. So the future of me and the future of my people is so deeply intertwined that I cannot care for me without caring for them. We're a package deal. That's what's coming to me for us to understand the value of paying attention. I'll pass it on to whoever wants to grab this one.
John or Linda?
Yeah, I'll grab it. I remember when I was in college, I was getting my special learning disabilities license, and literally we took over an entire emptied out school for the summer, and we were told to come up with a behavior program. And I was like not feeling real good about that. So it's like, why are we paying so much attention to kids being bad? Why aren't we paying attention to what they're doing right? So we created a behavior program where it was catch them being good. And so that was time I was on a team in school, and our team won an award for that. So we had a big chart with their names on it, and we put like a gold star or whatever each time we'd catch them being good. And the kids loved it, and they really were so much easier to work with. So as leaders, why aren't leaders catching people being good, edifying people? If you've ever been in a multi-level marketing company, it's all about edification. They're so good at edifying one another and their customers. So yeah, edification of others is just not a thing. Maybe in the energy of the new world, it's way more of a thing. But in old school, it's like you're gonna hear about what you did wrong.
John, what do you think?
I think that comes because that's what you learned as you were growing up. And in most cases, we got caught doing things wrong. And so we were, we weren't said, it's like, go to your room and think about what you just did. It's not like, go to your room and think about 5 new ways to do this so you don't get in trouble anymore. Nobody ever said that to me. I probably wouldn't have done it, but nobody ever said that to me. And so the thing is, and this goes back to what I said earlier, which is we don't give people the time to grow into the positions that we want them to take. We expect leaders for some reason to just become connected and encouraging and engaged people when they have never been rewarded or encouraged for that in the past. It's always been performance, sales numbers, cost numbers, and how far apart can those two numbers be? So what we really need to do if we're going to change the thought process or create this new paradigm idea is going to be we have to reward differently to get different results. People focus, people still, if you focus on sales, you're going to get sales. So people are going to, whatever you're focusing on, so that you have to be able to focus on the right items. I have an article I just sent to somebody, it was one I wrote a while ago called The Seed and the Soil. And the idea was the seed is the people, the seed is the planting and the soil is the people. And we work very hard on divining this seed and making sure that it's perfect in every way, and then we just drop it on the soil and assume it'll just happen. And it doesn't. And I was talking to a group just last week, and I said, how many people in here have ever had a new plan or procedure dropped on you from above and you had no input on its development or the way in which it should be, especially going back to work? I have a client right across the river here that's been building a building the entire time for COVID. The person that I know hasn't even been in the office for 2 years, but they're going back to the office in a couple of months, and nobody has been taught how to deal with this at all. And this is a very profitable business, and it's an international company. It's, to me, what seems like common sense. And so this is the problem, is that the people who get this, and they understand that. Unfortunately, the people who set up rewards and goals and direction for people to create new leadership, new ideas. I mean, what Terry's talking about here should be something that we should have all thought of a long time ago. And, making people important sounds like, well, of course, except for the fact that go ask the people if they feel important. And so that's what's important. The key here is not what I think, it's how do you feel? Is when I talk to people, I say, well, is it more important about what I'm teaching or what you're learning? And all of a sudden it's kind of like, whoa, I never thought of it that way before. And why not? You're the ones that are supposed to be teaching. How often do you ask your people if they're learning, or if there are other ways you could tweak what you're teaching so that it would be more useful to them? I mean, when I'm doing keynotes, I try to make sure I include some visual and some auditory and some art, some tactile work, so that people can sort of feel connected and engaged, versus I just drone on for a half an hour while you fall asleep and forget what I said. It's like Terry said, I get up and go back to work. I'm impressed that the boss said, what did you learn while you were away? I'm surprised the boss remembered you went away. So, it's if you can, right now, we have a tremendous opportunity to just do little teeny things and make huge differences because nobody else is doing it. So if you want to secure the best workers, you don't have to put a lot of work in right now. Just start caring, start thinking, rearrange your goals, and make sure your people are skilled enough to deliver on those goals. You will be one of 0.1% of the employers out there. You'll have your pick of the best people.
That was such a great point, John, about like that's how we were raised. And just think about in school, it's like the test is supposed to trick you, and the teachers, gonna put some sly things into the test to trick you. And I know that in college, my best course, the course I did the best in, was the professor was making sure we understood the information, letting us know, how she was going to test. And She didn't like teach us how to answer the questions. She taught us deeply so that we understood the concepts and how they were all connected with one another. She made sense of it for us, and it was super easy to pass the tests. And if there was going to be vocabulary on the test, she used it a lot, to the point that even in our answers back to her, it was clear that we understood the vocabulary. And I just absolutely love that class and that teacher.
Beautiful, Linda. It's so much about intention, right? What's coming up for me as both of you are speaking is that, so we want our people to play the leading role in their own lives. We want them to be self-motivated. This means that we get to support them in connecting with themselves. Because when we're always talking about what's going wrong, it means that we are so focused about what we fear. It's all about fear. It's fear-driven behavior. And what we want is for all of us to start talking about what we want. What's a yes for us? For each individual in our team, what's a yes for you? What do you want for yourself? What are you opening up to? What's your next step? And it takes people to connect with themselves and to know themselves. And as leaders, to support them on this journey, it means we get to first connect with ourselves and know our core values. What's motivating me? And to also explore how our values are connected with the values of the company that we are actually, working for. So very cool, you guys.
I love that. And it reminds me of Lydia Balagoon-Wilson, who's going to be our guest on High Vibe Conversations, Jenny, that we do with Shel Shapiro and Stina Marie and Dora Carlson. Yeah, and she is really adamant that the young people that join her team are putting down what they don't want, because it's easy for her to say, oh, like this job would be so good for you. And then if they're comfortable enough with her, and her team usually is, they're like, I don't want to do that. And she goes, why don't you have that on your whatever it is that they set up their corporation? Make sure you put that there. And thank you for sharing that with me. So now she's just making sure she's asking them what it is they don't want and guiding them to have it in place for the entire company to see. Because it's easy to think somebody be great at a job, but if they don't want it, what is that doing to your company? What is that doing to that worker? Does that make sense?
Very good. On point. This is a great conversation, and I knew it would be. Thinking through and reflecting some more back on my career and my research and reading the books of 𝗲𝗲𝗲, when he created a K car that connected to the common man, and it saved Chrysler. And then they put out advertising and the rest of the stuff to the company to grab this vision of America's new car, a safe car, a car that ran a little better on gas, and the warranties were actually working. And there are others that they had a great vision, and they lived that vision, and all of their people, right down to the people pushing the brooms on the floor, believed in that vision. And Chrysler, which was on the brink of bankruptcy and ended it all, not only rebound, they created an incredible car. And then they turned right around, and the minivan came out, and it was like, they're on. Okay, they are a leader again, not only again, but they are the leader at that point in time. And it's from a vision. We talk a lot on a lot of different programs, and really the four of us have talked separately about, the leadership in a company having a vision that's a little bit more than the 3 or 4 paragraphs that's in the business plan. It's a vision that everybody shares and everybody wants to achieve. And the harder they work at making the achievements that will get them to the vision, the more cohesive they are, the more people want to come to work because they want to be in that energy. They want to be excited and actually achieve things. Ladies and gentlemen, when was the last time you achieved something? How good you feel? Huh? Felt pretty good, didn't it? Well, how did it feel when the leadership of the company you were working for acknowledged you personally? Now you're ready to duplicate. And not only that, everybody on your team wants to duplicate that because they're excited and they feed off of each other's energy. So the ultimate result there is no burnout. These guys go and go and go. Anybody?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I did when I was younger, running a different company, was well, first of all, I would include the family. So if I was utilizing the man or the woman way more than I should, I sent something home to say thank you to the family, flowers or food or candy or whatever it might be. The other thing that I found works very well, especially when I was consulting with people, well, I just don't have a budget for this kind of bonuses and all this other stuff. And appreciation, it struck me once when I was in a Kai's office and they had a Post-it note framed on the wall next to the guy's computer terminal, because that's the only note he had ever gotten from his boss. It was a, thanks very much for a job well done. And it was just, stuck on something like this and hung on a wall. And so, what we started doing was I started having the leadership write letters that went home with the people. So you had the cost of a stamp, a letterhead, and an envelope, and 10 minutes to write something personal, specific and personal, that went home and made the person look like a hero in front of their family. Now that is a person who can feel successful and pass that success along to someone else, because these are the people that we work for. We work for our families so that they will know that we're working hard and be successful. But if that's not acknowledged by where we work, then if we're good workers, we're going to have choices of places to go work. And so if you're not acknowledging the good workers, they'll find other places to go work. And then pretty soon you'll have a company full of people who don't have any other choice but to work for you. And that's not the company I want filling up my hallways. So
my first husband thought that clearing his desk was what he needed to do to be a good worker. And then he found out once he was in management that that's just what managers do. So the millennials don't think that way. So, you're not going to find that going on so much nowadays. They're even like quitting and reapplying at the same job because they didn't like what was going on. So really tapping in and finding out what your people are thinking and feeling is what's going to keep people at your corporation.
Good point. Good point. John, those are great things that you did for your people. I do 2-Minute Tuesdays. It's another live, and one of those, are more than one. I reached out to the key leadership and say, hey, look at the key leaders in your group or your division or whatever, and they've got some kids that are about ready to graduate from high school or college. How about sending them a card from you, signed by you? Congratulations, right? And there's, June's wedding month. For the senior people, they've got kids getting married. So how about taking your significant other out to a lovely lunch and spend the afternoon buying some cards to send to those weddings, to send to the parents of those people who are getting married? That is powerful reach out and acknowledgement of how much you appreciate who they are. Anybody?
Well, since I am in the business of healing people, healing executives so that they also heal the people around them, enabling them to come to work as their best authentic selves. What comes to mind for me is that healing begins with being seen and being heard. And it does not take a master's degree in behavioral science for us to see the people around us. to pay attention, to stay that extra minute and ask what's going on. It's very powerful indeed.
I think the point that Terry made earlier about 𝗗𝗲𝗄 working with, being around other workers. I mean, that's where he got the idea to cut the roof off a Mustang and start Mustang convertibles back up again, which didn't do a bad job for Ford either. So the thing is, I mean, Michael Bloomberg had an article in the New York Times just last week about Bloomberg working on the floor at Bloomberg Financial. He's got a space like everybody else has got a space, and how are you going to know what's going on if you're not there? I've written a number of articles about you cannot lead from behind a desk. It's just, you just can't. You may be able to plan from behind a desk, but you can't lead from back there. And so people need to know that you're as engaged as you're expecting them to be. It used to drive me crazy when I'd be working with coaching somebody and the owner of the business would come in at 11 o'clock on a Friday afternoon dressed up. I mean, there's no question about I'm heading for the golf course. Absolutely no question based on the ducks on the pants. So, it was, but you better not be going anywhere. I'm going to go play golf, but you're not going to go play golf. I worked really hard for many, many years, and so I deserve this. And I'm thinking, well, the other guy down the hall has been working here just as long as you've been working here. He's just not the president. So, how do you have, these are the values that I expect you to hold to, but I'm going to slip underneath there a little bit. So, integrity is really important and consistency is really important. And if you don't exemplify those components, please do not expect them from the people that work for you. It just doesn't work that way.
And another huge mistake is to stand over people. I know even Terry can't stand it if I stand over by his desk and it feels like I'm standing over him. And that's just so much of like you're in trouble with the teacher or you're being stupid and the teacher's got to stand over you and make sure you don't make a stupid mistake. Lots of people are triggered by having people watch them work. And like Jenny, you'll work in a Word doc before you'll put something in a Drive doc where it's shared with others, right? So that's a really unnerving thing. And so like John, you said, yeah, don't stay behind your desk. Well, also don't go around standing over people either, right? It's like meet them at the cooler or something. I love it.
Here's a good point that comes to the fore. It's one thing to walk around your office. It's another thing. How do you get to geographically separated units with multiple managers, et cetera? What I used to do is unannounced visits. And it wasn't to go find somebody doing something wrong. It was to go pat on backs and say, how you doing? Touching base. Okay. Now, if you're running Bank of America with 400,000 people in 15, 20 countries, that's a little harder to do, granted. It's the little things that you consistently do. In larger corporations, there's video capacity where you can constantly put out videos using your personality and your message. And your message is to encourage and reinforce how great you think those people are and that you appreciate them. So good points there and very valid. But that really gets down to Mr. Top of the Leap, the apex executive. Reach out, be human. Okay. Don't mind saying, I was wrong on this. Let's see if we can change it. Good point, employee ABC. Thank you for your input, and thank you for being part of our company. Right? Any final thoughts, folks?
I just wanted to acknowledge Paula, who sent the note in about how do you do this with multiple locations, and Terry, I think, touched on that a little bit. But the idea here is that, Sam Walton managed to do it for a very long time, walk around, from store to store to store, and built Walgreens up from a small drugstore in Arkansas. So it can be done, but that's all he did. Once he got to a point where all he did was go fly around and talk to people. So there's a large franchise here that I work with where the owners go for every time there's a new franchise opens up, they're there, they're shaking hands and they're meeting people. But the most important thing to me is that the company have the intention and the integrity to represent itself the way that it purports itself to be. It's high integrity, high touch, high care. So as the CEO, I'm going to teach my board that. I want to expect my board and my division people to teach their people that, so that the response I would get from a truck driver at UPS is the same as it would get if I was walking in a boardroom at UPS. What is your main, goal today? And the answer better be the same from the truck driver to the board person. And that's how you do it with a multi-level, multi-divisional, multi-continent company, is that I can't go say hello to everybody, but I need to be able to make sure that the people who work for me exemplify the same commitment to growth and integrity as I hope they all will be. So that's it. Sorry, Terry, I didn't mean to get off.
No problem. That was great. That was great. Jenny or Linda?
Well, so if our humanity is the bridge between us, meaning we show up real and true and authentic, to open the doors to others means that we firstly get to open the door to ourselves. And this can be really scary sometimes because we hold so much judgment from our past and we have so many stories going on about who we are. And it's just very empowering to find people who you can share with and who you can be vulnerable with as a leader, a coach, even to have that space to self-reflect and actually find the peace of building a loving, caring relationship towards yourself so that you can be you and connect with others as the brilliant person that you truly are. So just encouraging people to hold that compassionate space for themselves as they self-reflect.
Good stuff. Linda?
Oh, was it Walmart, John, or Walgreens, or both? Walton. Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you. You're
Sam,
on.
that's okay. Sam Walton was Walmart.
Walmart. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. I'm good.
Mr. Green Jeans was Walgreens. So sorry. There's my 7-year-old smartass is still wandering around in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for episode 1 of our series, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here live. And for those of you who are listening to the comments, we all 4 are looking forward to responding to your comments on all 3, Facebook, here on LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please give us your feedback, and we would love to enter into a dialogue. We're going to be here next Wednesday, sometime over lunch, is what we like to say, and we'll enjoy as another part of this series and something else to thank. Everybody, thank you for coming and thank you for being part of this. This is going to be great. I'm so excited. Bye-bye, everybody.